we did have a busy week and a busy weekend, but it was also full and rich, if that makes sense. I think we can be busy and we can be tired and we can be worn down, but we can also be blessed, right? So church, thanks for being the church. Thanks for being who you are and what you do. God's doing stuff through you. God's using you in ways that I don't think we've fully realized just yet. And so I want to encourage you, wherever you are in your faith journey, don't give up, keep going. He's using you, okay? We're continuing the series from law to life. And last week we looked at this idea of salt and light and what that means and comparing Old Testament law. Why is that stuff there? Jesus said he came to fulfill the law. And then we look at New Testament, like the book of James, where he's talking to the church. He's saying, hey, church, wake up. The Spirit wants to empower you to continue to live. And so that's been our mantra through this series since the last Sunday of 2025 and now into 2026. We're looking at how God reveals his heart through the law, Old Testament law, right? That stuff like in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, the stuff that everybody loves to read. God reveals his heart through the law. And then Jesus appears. Well, he doesn't appear, it's part of the plan, right? And Jesus shows up and fulfills the law. Last week, we also talked about what that word fulfillment meant. He didn't obliterate it. He fulfilled it so that we're not held under the impossible thumbprint of that law, right? And then James, the half-brother of Jesus, says, hey, church, wake up. He's given us his Spirit to empower you to live out this life. That's this idea we're looking at. And so my hope and my plan is to help you understand a little bit more that this book is not just 66 individual little stories, right? It's not just the creation story in Genesis. It's not just the Psalms, which some of those are wonderful to memorize and remember. And it's not just the Gospels. It's not just Paul's writings. This is a love letter written to us, inspired by God. And it's one whole from front to back. It's one story where God continues to reveal his heart and his love and his desire for his creation. And my hope is to simplify. I think we really do a poor job of overcomplicating this stuff. We really do. I want to simplify the understanding that God's heart reveals the law, that Jesus came to fulfill the law, and the Spirit empowers us to live it. All right? And so today we're going to continue this series. And the title of this one is, You've Heard It Said. You've heard it said. Jesus used that phrase a number of times while he was giving the Sermon on the Mount, preaching that most famous sermon. And so we're going to get into that in just a second. But I have to ask you a question. Why are some of the meanest people, why are some of those, why do they know their Bible front to back? Do I need to rephrase that? Maybe I should say this. Let's maybe be honest a little bit more this morning. Some of the meanest people maybe we have ever met are the ones that claim to be the loudest, boldest Christians who know their Bible from front to back. Don't look around. Don't point fingers. Don't do that. Just zero in. They follow the rules to a T. They go to church. They tithe. They don't smoke. They don't drink. They don't chew. They don't, There we go. There we go. Here we go. I knew somebody would say it. Thank you. But folks get in their way, frustrate them, sit in their pew, and suddenly that Christian kindness vanishes quicker than the last donut at the cafe. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. I want to kind of create that tension. Because when I mention things like that or try to describe a person like that, a number of you can be like, I know who that is. And you have an image, you have a picture in your head. Now this morning, I don't want you to hate that person more. That's not the goal that we're trying to aim for. But I want you to remember those feelings that person evokes. That person who wears a cross around their neck and claims to be, a Christian and does all the right things, but they're just kind of the rudest, meanest people you've ever met, right? Unfortunately, that's the picture, that is a picture that the world has of Christians, right? Right? So, here's the question. Why do people who follow the rules still act nothing like Jesus? I want to make that a little bit better. Why do people who follow the rules still act like jerks? Can we go that far? Why do they still act like jerks? And maybe a deeper question that we want to kind of flesh out today is, what kind of righteousness does God actually care about? Remember, God reveals his heart through the law. Jesus fulfills the law, and the Spirit empowers us to live it. I think we can know a lot about God. We can have a lot of knowledge about God and still not be shaped by him. Would you agree? See, this is the exact moment that Jesus walks into this religious world that looked clean on the outside, but instead on the inside it was dead and rotten. And what he says about it in Matthew chapter 5, it's which we will get there. It's not just raising the bar. Instead, it's Jesus moving inside. So let's get into this. I want to talk about the law. And I want to kind of rewind our minds, our thoughts, way back to the Ten Commandments. To the Ten Commandments. Anybody know where you find the Ten Commandments in Scripture? Anybody? Yeah, Exodus. Well done. Yeah, Moses, the whole Exodus thing. Exodus chapter 20, God gives Moses these literally etched in stone laws, right? He gives him these 10 rules on Mount Sinai, and they're foundational. They form this moral framework of God's people. Things like don't steal. Yeah, that's good. Don't murder. Don't lie. Don't commit adultery. Those are good things. Those are important things. Wouldn't you agree? Yeah, but here's the problem with those things. Wait a second, Pastor. Did you just say there's a problem with the Ten Commandments? Yes, I did. Hang with me. I'm not saying that one of them is a problem. They're all correct. They're all right. They're all good. But here's the problem. We can obey those commandments with our body only. Are you following me? And still break them in our heart. You didn't murder, hopefully. But did you carry hate and animosity towards that person in your heart and just totally ignore them? You didn't cheat, you didn't commit adultery, you didn't cheat on your wife, your spouse, whatever. But when that person passed you in Target, we were like, hey. Was your heart filled with lust? Did you have to erase the history on your computer or on your phone so someone else wouldn't see what you've been looking at? You didn't lie this week. That's a good thing. Hopefully we didn't lie. But did you twist the truth to make it fall into your advantage? Did you sugarcoat it? Did you tell a long tale? See, the Pharisees in Scripture, when Jesus enters the scene, the Pharisees, they were pros at doing things like this. They looked spotless. They looked obedient and righteous and upright. But that was all external. It was all on the outside, polished on the outside, but dead and rotten on the inside. Folks, I'll tell you, that's why the world looks at Christianity and some Christians and say, no, that's not for me. They're fake. I see how they go to their places of worship, their churches on a Sunday, but I also see how they act Monday to Saturday. Folks, people know. They see. Maybe we've been there too. Maybe we keep the rules out of guilt. Maybe what others have said to us and we feel shame, so we keep the rules out of guilt. Or maybe we obey out of fear. Folks, those are the wrong motives. We're performing instead of being transformed. See, Jesus knew all of that. He was able to see all that. And so he says something that flips the whole system that man made inside out. He didn't literally just flip tables. He flipped the whole system inside out. And so in Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 to 48, Jesus uses some famous lines in there. He says this, but you've heard it said, but I say to you. He says this a number of times. And so I want to go over just a few of these today to help us understand the concept of what Jesus means to say, I came to fulfill the law. I came to finish it so that you weren't held under the thumb of that oppression. You've heard it said, but I say to you. He doesn't say it not one time or two times. He says it 6 times. 6 times. Let's just walk through a few of them. Are you ready? You've heard it said, don't murder. Oh, good. Check. I didn't do that this week. Good. Thought about it. Really, I'm going to be honest. I thought about it, but I didn't do it. But Jesus says, if you're angry with someone, you've committed judgment against them. You've heard it said, don't commit adultery. Check. Didn't do that. Didn't take anyone else out. Good. Check. But Jesus says, if you look with lust, you just look with lust, you've already committed adultery in your heart. Then he says, you've heard it said, love your neighbor. That's doable. Check. I can do that, right? I can love our neighbor. And then Jesus says, but also love your enemy and pray for the people that hurt you and come against you. Really? I have to do that too? He takes it a step further. Folks, friends, Jesus isn't just raising the bar. He's not just doing that. He's moving it to a whole nother playing field. He's taking it further than just the physical. He says, no, it's about your heart. It's about your mind. It's about your motives and your actions. Because righteousness, if it only stays external, if righteousness is only on the outside, it never gets deep into your bones, your thoughts, your motives. And then he actually refers to the person as just a whitewashed tomb. You're just a whitewashed tomb. You might look nice and clean and put together on the outside. You might be faking it, but on the inside, you're dead. And if you've ever smelled death before, it stinks. And that smell does not leave you. Folks, we don't want to leave a trail of the smell of death behind us because people remember what that smell of death is. Growing up on a hog farm and a cattle farm, we would try to work with a guy, or it was a guy that's called the dead truck. Kind of gross, right? It looks similar to a truck like Randy has for his trees, right? And the boom on the back, and it had a crane. He'd reach down and pick up dead things. And they would take it, and I won't tell you what they did with it. But but on a farm of 4,000 plus animals, sometimes things happen and diseases happen and stuff happens, right? And every once in a while we'd have to call the dead truck, and he would come out and he would haul away. But there were times when he wasn't available, and we had to dispose of these animals. And so we had a spot in the back corner of the farm property that really wasn't usable for tillable ground. It wasn't part of the pasture. And so we kind of sectioned that spot off and used that as a burial ground. I can tell you, I know what death smells like. And if you've ever been around it, or maybe you've driven past roadkill or something like that, you know what death smells like. That smell does not leave you. Folks, when we operate as a whitewashed tomb, fake put together on the outside, clean ourselves up for an hour and a half once a week, oh yeah, life's been great, things are good, yeah, everything's going well. You leave behind you a trail of death. I'm not saying you're murdering and killing people, that's not what I'm saying. But you leave behind you a stench. People can pick up fakeness like that, right? People pick up fake in a second. And so what Jesus is saying, don't just obey the rules on the outside. We should obey the rules. We should follow the rules, right? But don't do it just on the outside to check off a box. He's taking this whole playing field of rules and moving it to a whole nother section. He's not just interested in our behavior and our actions. Those are good. He's interested in our heart. He's after our heart and what our heart desires, because if righteousness stays external, it never gets deep inside you. It never transforms you into the person that he has created and called you to be. Matthew chapter 5, verse 48, Jesus says this at the end of this section. This is kind of his mic drop moment. He says, be perfect. Well, shoot. Be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Come on, Jesus, really? That's impossible. That is completely impossible, except for Noah and quizzing. We can't be perfect. Jesus, there is no way that I can do that. And he's going, exactly, that's the point. Thank you for realizing that you cannot be perfect. That's what he wants you to know. You can't be perfect. We can't clean ourselves up enough. We can't behave our way into the kingdom. It doesn't work that way. We need a new heart, and the only way that we get that is through Jesus. That's the only way this thing works. That's the only way we can truly walk around with this label, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christ follower, I'm a follower of the way. It doesn't happen through our actions and through our behaviors. We can fake behaviors. We can fake actions. We can't fake having a new heart. We can't fake being made into a new creation. You need a new heart, and it's only through Jesus. Now, remember, God reveals his heart through the law. Jesus fulfills the law and takes it a step further. And then James steps in and he doesn't let up. He doesn't take his foot off the gas and say, okay, now let's calm down. Let's make sense of all this. No, he doesn't do that either. In fact, in James chapter 4, verses 1-3, he says, you ask, but you don't receive because you ask with the wrong motives. With the wrong motives. James is echoing what Jesus started. God cares about your heart, not just the words that you pray, but the why behind them. What's the why? What's the true motive? Folks, I'll be honest with you. In church, we can come and serve out of pride. Well, look at what I'm doing. We can come and we can give to be seen. We can obey out of fear, not love. One word that often gets thrown around when we talk to non-believers or agnostics or atheists or whatever, non-Christians, talk to that about Christians is they say, they use a phrase called, well, you're all fundamentalists and you practice legalism. You're all about legalism. In fact, legalism, definition of that kind of says, I have to. If we're legalistic, then we have to do X, Y, Z. Does that make sense? But instead, Jesus turns that all upside down, and grace says, I get to. What if we flip the script just like Jesus did? Let's simplify this. And what if we started saying, well, it's Sunday, so I have to go to church. I can't do that Sunday morning. I have to go to church. No. What if instead we said, well, it's Sunday, so I get to go to church to worship? That changes the posture of your heart. Do you see that? Do you see the shift that takes place? Folks, we can't fake that. Because if we try, they're going to smell the dead. Grace says, I get to. So I want to ask you just a question. And I want you to kind of chew on this question. Are you living for God's approval? Or are you living from it? Are you living for God's approval? Are you trying to impress him with your behavior, your actions, what we do? Or are you living because what he has already done? Because folks, he's already done the work. Are you willing to receive it? I think it was last week, I think I did. And I've shared it before, the story of the thief on the cross. He didn't do a thing to earn his way into the kingdom. Instead, he received it because he believed in the one on the middle cross. Folks, Jesus didn't come. Jesus didn't come to make you behave. He didn't come to give you strength just to follow the rules and do the right things. Sorry if that's what you thought, to burst your bubble. That's not why he came. The reason why he came is to make you new, to give you that new heart. Folks, we don't need more rule followers. I'm thankful for that. We don't need, anybody love following the rules? Like that's your desire? Don't raise your hand, it's fine. We don't need more rule followers. The world doesn't need more rule followers. We need more heart-surrendered, spirit-filled, Jesus-shaped people. That's what we need. And the only way we're going to be that type of person is to allow him to transform us and give us a new heart. And folks, when your heart is transformed, your life, your behaviors, your actions will follow that. Because when you have a new heart, your motives shift. Your why changes. Your words, your language changes. Pretty soon your actions begin to carry love, not just obligation because I have to. It's I get to. See, that's the picture of righteousness that Jesus came to give. That's what it is. So here's, on the screen there's some questions. What's shaping your righteousness? What's shaping your why? Is it rules or is it a relationship? Is it guilt or is it grace? Is it behavior or is it becoming who he has created and called you to be? So now that maybe we can simplify a little bit of what this says and the why of what Jesus came to do, the law and Jesus and the Spirit, what's our obligation? Like what do we have to do in the midst of this, right? So how do we put all this in a neat little package so we can take it home with us? Well, I think there's a couple of things. One, we can't go back to the checklist. Okay, check, I didn't murder. Check, I didn't lie. Check, I didn't commit adultery. Check, I didn't disobey my parents or whatever. We don't have our checklist, right? Get away from the checklist. Step away from that. Instead, look at Jesus. Jesus, what do you want from me? What do you need from me? And I think I think he's going to answer just one simple word. I want your heart. I want your heart. I want your desires. I want your love. See, it's not us having to try harder to be better. Oh, I just got to try harder. One of these days, I'll figure it out. I'll try harder. I'll be better. No. That's not how it works. You can try harder all day long, but that's not who you are. Instead of trying harder, what if we surrendered deeper? What if we let God have more? Even the dirty closet that we don't show anybody else. What if we surrender more? I think when our heart is surrendered, when we truly surrender, when we truly say, okay, there's nothing else, Jesus, you can have it. When we found that place in our faith journey, I think we stop trying to earn. We stop trying to earn our way in, and instead, like James says, we start living empowered, because the Spirit then can go, all right, we've got control now. Let's do some cool stuff. So here we are. What's been driving your faith? What's been driving your faith? Is it checking the boxes? Okay, did this, did that. All right, didn't do those things. All right, should be good. Because that's out of fear. Is it fear or desire? What's driving your faith? Maybe we need to examine our lives and look at where maybe legalism has crept in. Folks, the world doesn't need to see more legalism. They don't need a whole new set of rules and lists to follow. I don't want more rules and lists to follow. And then the last question is, are you more focused on your behavior, what you do or don't do? Or you're more focused on letting Jesus transform you, who you are becoming? That's the picture of going from law to life. Too often, Christians, churchgoers, Jesus followers, they're looked at as folks who, okay, well, those are the ones who don't do this and don't do that, and they don't go to those places, and they disagree with those people, and they don't get along with this, and they vote this way, and whatever. That's how they're defined by the world. And Jesus saw that. And he said, okay, those things, they're not bad. Those aren't bad things. But what if, instead of being defined by what's on the outside, what if you were defined by what you did? How you loved, how you shared, how you served others. And he takes it a step deeper. Folks, Jesus didn't cancel the law. He fulfilled it. And I believe right now he's calling us in that same direction. Let's not take this and try to beat people over the head with what we don't do. That's not what it's about. This reveals God's heart, which is love. Jesus shows us you don't have to be held under the oppression. I've given you my Spirit so you can live out that in your everyday lives through grace. So what are those areas in your life that you need to surrender so that we're not doing things out of obligation or by fear? Instead, we're following out of love. And so in just a second, we're gonna sing a little chorus and we're gonna wrap up our time. You're like, wow, it's like only 11:30. Yeah, that's right. Because some things don't need to be said more than once or twice. So here's kind of the crux of it all and how this all kind of begins to work and make sense. I think we should ask ourselves those questions. What am I being driven by? Why am I a rule follower? Why am I doing this? Why am I even coming here to a place like this? Is it out of obligation? I sure hope not. I don't want you to be obligated to come here. I don't want to be obligated to go through the motions on a Sunday morning. Well, it's Sunday morning, I got to go to church. No. I don't want you to be that way. I want you to be so in love with Jesus that I get to come together with other brothers and sisters and worship and praise and pray and encourage and grow in relationship together. And then as we're done, we leave this place and we take that light and that salt with us so that those out there see a difference. They're not looking at Christians saying, oh, those are the folks who we don't want to. Instead, they're saying, there's something different about them. I want to know more. That's the picture of who we're called to be as a Christ follower. Not just somebody with a church bumper sticker on the car or a cross around our neck, but somebody whose life smells different. People can smell death in a second. They can also smell something different that's attractive to them. Ooh, you're different than, what's different about you? Why are you the way you are? That's attractive. That's powerful. That's life-changing. That opens the door to conversations where you can begin to tell them about, I have a new heart because of this Jesus guy, and let me tell you a little bit about him. Let me tell you about my story. That's what this is about. We move from law to life. It's not about what we don't do and who we don't associate with. Don't worry about that. It's about what we get to do because Jesus has given you a new heart and you're transformed into a new creation. That's what it means to go from law to life. Let's begin to live out this calling, this new picture. Folks, Jesus has been trying to do this for a long time, and I think we're ready. And so I want to encourage you. I want to challenge you right where you are in your seat. You don't need to come forward. We're not going to raise our hands or do this or that. But I want you to ask yourself a question. Just you personally, ask yourself that question. Why am I doing all this stuff? Is it out of obligation, or am I just checking off a box, or it's just what I do? Or is it out of that relationship with the one who created you and has called you to something more? Have you received that new heart? That's what he wants to do in you.